Shavua Tov, Boker Tov. Okay, so what we're going to do this morning is, as you can see, Psalm 47. And Psalm 47 is very famous to most of us because this is the psalm that we recite 7 times before Tekiyat Shofar every year, Shavua Tov. And it's funny, for a psalm that we recite 7 times, how little we know about it. It's like it becomes. It's embarrassing to say because I'm sometimes involved. AJ, I'm sometimes involved in this myself. You know, when they say you got to say it 7 times, it becomes like just a burden. I just want to get it over with, and you don't think about what you're saying, and it's very sad. It's very sad because the poem. The poem obviously has a lot of meaning for the act of blowing shofar. Apparently, the pshat in the poem, before we talk about how we use it on Rosh Hashanah, when you look at Psalm 46, Psalm 46 talks about the eventual victory of the Jewish nation over the world, and is talking about Yemot HaMashiach in that sense, the ultimate victory in Biat HaMashiach. Doesn't mention Mashiach, but mentions the victory. So apparently, the pshat in this poem it's the celebration after defeating, the bad guys, Amalek, Gog and Magog, whatever, however you want to describe. So that's pshat in the poem is that celebration. However, there's 2 things about the poem that lend it to recitation on Rosh Hashanah. Number 1 is they talk about blowing shofar a lot, and we'll get to those references. But the other thing is the superscript. When you look at the introduction, it's Lamanatseach for the conductor or for the leader of the orchestra. Livnei Korach. It was written by the sons of Korach. And according to the Midrash, the authors of the poem were mamish, the sons of Korach. That's not what most of the historians say. Most of the historians say that there was a group of musically talented Levium, a lot of the Levium were musically talented, that were descendants of Korach. Now that presents us with a problem, because what happened to all of the members of the house of Korach? They were swallowed. In Pashas Korach, all of his family and all of his possessions were swallowed by the earth. But there's a midrash that since Bnei Korach get referenced later, there's a story that 2 of his sons did tshuva, that when the earth opened up, they felt so bad for having been loyal to their father's revolt against Moshe Rabbeinu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepted their tshuva and they were saved. And so that's one of the nice references, that midrashic reference to the poem, because it's about Balei Tshuva, Bnei Korach, Balei Tshuva. And we want to be Balei Tshuva on Rosh Hashanah. So it's a song that was written by Balei Tshuva, so hopefully it inspires us. It reminds us that no matter what the decree against us was, no matter what the sentence against us was, that there's always compassion in the justice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's how it begins. It's a mizmor. We're going to talk about music a lot in the poem, that it's a mizmor. It's a musical poem. There are shows that sing it, and there are a number of tunes to it. But I'm used to being in those shows where you just, recite it dramatically. Okay. Babble it. That's probably even better. Babble it. Okay, so that's the introduction to the poem. And now let's begin. The first part of the poem is about a celebration. Kol ha'amim tika'u chaf. All of the nations. So it is this eschatological vision of this future world where everyone is going to acknowledge Hashem. And this is the end of the poem brings that up again. So all of the nations are going to do something that's called tika uchaf. Most Meforshim believe that means to make noise with your hands. Taka, tekiya, it means to make noise. And so make noise with your kaf. So most people believe it means to clap. That, it's like, musically clapping, and so that's the most common pshat. Rashi says, interestingly enough, Rashi says it means to hold hands, that all of the nations are going to hold hands, that they're going to grab each other's palm. But I don't think that's pshat. But of course, we look at this, and we again say it's another reference to blowing shofar. Tika'u, tikiyot, kaf. Now, kaf, of course, means the palm of your hand, but kaf is also the gematria of 100. And so some people say that this is the minhag of blowing 100 notes. I mean, normally we say it's because of the cries of the mother of Sisera, that she cried 100 times from Shirat Devorah, from the book of Shoftim. But there are others who say that this is one of the reasons we say the poem, because it has the number blow, tika'u, kaf, 100 times, which of course is our minhag. So it says, tika'u, make noise, that it's called tekiah, but then it says hariyu, which is another way of making noise, okay? Hariyu is usually considered, of course, the broken notes, but again, it means makes noise. So hariyu, blow shofarot, blow musical instruments, blow wind instruments to Elokim, b'kol rina, with a sound of joyous song. Rina means to sing joyously. Now, if you notice, I underlined Elokim. I underlined Elokim in the poem. And the reason I underlined it is because it's there 7 times. Elokim is there 7 times. Elokim, which of course is the name of Hashem for justice, okay, for din and for power, as opposed to Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is, rachamim, compassion, empathy, mercy. So Elokim is in the poem 7 times. We recite the poem 7 times because we're supposed to be raising ourselves up through 49 levels of sin, of impurity, just like we count in the Omer. 49 days, because the Jews had sunk to this low level of Tuma. So here also, the concept in the poem is, again, ascending. We're going to see a lot of verbs for going up, right? We're going to talk about ascending, and we want to talk about ascending 49 levels. So that's into the concept of blowing shofar is supposed to raise us. And that's in the repetition of the name Elokim. Okay. So we're making all this noise. Let's go back to Pshat a minute, forgetting about, the symbolism. In the Pshat, all the nations are making noise and they're singing to God because Yud Kei Vav Kei is Elyon Norah. Again, is extremely elevated, awesomely high. Awesomely high sounds like some of my friends in the 60s, right? They're, but Elyon here means to be on this exalted, highly elevated level. That's what Kadosh Baruch Hu is. Remember that image of Yud Kei Vav Kei being extremely exalted, because we're going to come back to that. Melech Gadol al Kol Haaretz, a great king over all the land. Excuse me. And again, this brings us back to the theory that this poem is after the defeat of the bad guys. So again, everybody is going to recognize Hashem. It's coronating Hashem as, Melech al Kol Haaretz, and that we're going to return to that theme at the end of the poem also. But it fits in with the themes of Rosh Hashanah. So what we've got already is 3 names for Hashem, which are Rosh Hashanah names. Elokim, Yom Hadin, okay? Hashem, which is the God of compassion, mercy, forgiveness, and then Melech, Malchiot, because we also refer to Hashem on Rosh Hashanah all the time as Melech, which brings us to the question, what's higher? Let's say you were making cards in a deck, and who would be higher, a king or a god? Right? I mean, Ace is highest, right? So very good. So but we normally think of, in other words, kings or emperors in the ancient world, when they wanted to give themselves a raise, they announced that they were a god. So the question is, how come during the year we say Baruch Hashem, Hakel Hakadosh, the holy God, but on Rosh Hashanah we say the holy king? It sounds like that's a demotion, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going from a god to a king. That sounds like it's a lesser job. The answer is very simple. And I'm not sure that we modern people feel it so much. The concept of king, until very recently, until you go back just a couple of centuries, until very recently in human history, the concept of king was very scary. And the king was somebody that could, just with a wave of his hand, off with your head, right? And that's the definition of a king, is someone who has the power of summary execution. By the way, there's a bracha that we recite when you see a king. And it's a machloket today whether or not we recite that bracha for modern kings, because a lot of Meforshim said the reason you said that bracha for a king was because of that awesome power of summary execution. And I don't think any kings today have that. The king of Sweden or Denmark or the queen of England, they don't have that power. Putin has it. Putin's got that power. yeah, but he's not a king. He's only a president. It's an argument if you say the bracha over a president, but I think you should say it over Putin. I mean, he's pretty scary. I'm sorry? Not everyone agrees. It's L'basar v'dam. That's the bracha for a king. But not everyone agrees. No, Jay, there are many Meforshim that say that, but not everyone agrees, because a king a president isn't like an ultimate power. Number one, they don't have the power of summary execution. Number two, they have to give up their job, which is why you can say it for Putin. He doesn't have to give up his job, and he has the right of summary execution. Right? He just rigs the next election and just stays on. So it's like. But it's an argument. It's an argument. The truth is, I didn't. I saw a president years ago, and I didn't. You saw 3?
I saw Roosevelt, Truman, and Nixon.
Wow. They're all dead. Okay, so that's what's going on in Pasuk Gimel. Okay, now comes Pasuk Dalet. Yadbir amim tachtenu. Now it's an argument what yadbir means. Rashi has a very unpleasant pshat. Rashi's pshat is that the word yadbir comes from the Hebrew word dever, which is a plague. So that we're like a plague, underneath us. The nations are plagued. I don't like that pshat so much. That many other Meforshim, the Malbim, many other Meforshim say that the Yadber comes from Yanheg, to lead. That we lead the other nations. And I like that. And that's part of the Messianic vision, that the Jews will be recognized as having a leadership role within humanity. Although there are people that say that the Jews are a plague, but we don't like those people. That's not a pleasant pshat in this particular. Well, I'm sorry.
The exterminate.
Yeah, from the word dever. It comes from that. Yeah. But it's in this particular context, Jay, it's not very pleasant, but you're right. Okay. Ula-umim tachat raglenu, and the peoples. So there are different terms for national groupings. And Am is a more cohesive group than a La'um. A La'um is more an ethnicity. Well, an Am is like, has like political bonds, like a political entity, like a country or a nation or even a state, that they're connected. While La'um, they're connected, but more loosely. But all national groupings will be under us, will recognize our leadership in the world. And of course, we'd like to think that leadership is mostly, by its nature, spiritual and moral. That's what we're hoping for, right? That kind of spiritual and moral leadership. And then this first part of the poem describing this future age on the pshat level, okay, ends by a sort of a summary. Yivchalanu et nachalatenu, that Hashem is going to choose us. Okay, now some people say it's choose for us our nachala, our portion. Now a nachala, which we translate as a portion, is an eternal portion. It's a legacy, or with concept like an heirloom, as opposed to just a portion that you can just, you have and can use. This is a portion that will be with us eternally. As a heritage or legacy, something of that, And of course, we believe that this is a reference to Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael, specifically Yerushalayim, but also Eretz Yisrael. Hi, welcome back. How are you feeling? Good. Et Gaon Yaakov Asher Ahev Selah. And the choice is going to be the glory, the pride, the exalted state of Yaakov, whom God loved, whom he, in this case, God loved. Selah just means stop. It's a musical note that it's punctuation, full stop. That's the end of the first part of the poem. And so whenever you see a Selah, end of that concept, end of that idea. And so this idea in all of these first verses is about the joy of the world over the eventual leadership of the Jewish nation. And that it's a combination of joy and recognition of the Jews as spiritual, moral, even political guides for the world. First part of the poem. Not much there about blowing shofar, that's going to come right now, but a little bit about making noise and having a celebration that includes music. And we do have the word tekiyah and hario. Those are terms we use for shofar, but not so much about shofar yet. That's coming right now. In this part of the poem, we have the first idea. Reb Saadia Gaon actually gives 10 reasons for why we blow shofar. And this part of the poem really is the first reason given by Reb Saadia Gaon. And that is, it's a fanfare for the king coming in. And this will get continued the next part. So the music at the beginning, like if the president comes in, they play Hail to the Chief, but they play it right. They play it with trumpets, right? It's heavily with brass, strong. And the same thing if royalty comes in, they have these trumpets that announce the coming. So that's the first reason for blowing the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, because we're coronating the king. And this idea is being mentioned here in the first part. But how come we talk about the glory or the exalted state of Yaakov. Some people would like to translate the genius, because later the word Gaon meant genius, but it didn't mean that in biblical Hebrew. That was a later meaning of the term. It means glory, pride, glow, exalted status. That's what Gaon means. Is Gaon, right. I mean, in Europe too, the Vilna Gaon, someone who was a great genius, but that was a later meaning for the term. Already the period of the Gaonim, right, who were great scholars as well as leaders. But why Yaakov? At the end of the poem, we're going to reference Abraham. But why Yaakov? He's the father of. Well, so is Abraham. I thought you were going to say something else. Now, all of the descendants of Yaakov are Jewish. So in other words, once you get to Yaakov, then you're saying it's only the Jews that are going to have this exalted status. Now, it's if you say either Avram or Yitzchak, then that includes some of their progeny some of their gene pool who ended up not being Jewish. The majority with Avram, because Ishmael is the Arabs, the Muslims, that are a much larger gene pool than we are. So that's why it's Yaakov here, according to most of the Meforshim, because we're focusing on the fact that the leadership doesn't come just genetically. Then it would be Abraham. It comes also because we're Jewish. So Yaakov represents that gene pool which is Jewish. Okay, now comes the middle of the poem, which according to most people is the real reason that we say this on Rosh Hashanah. I know we've already mentioned, blowing. We already mentioned Elokim is in the poem, 7 times and 7 times 7. We mentioned all that, but really. And I have a footnote from the Kedusha Levi we're going to look at in a second. This line gets us into what most people believe is the purpose of this psalm on Rosh Hashanah. Allah Elokim Bitru'ah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Elokim, Allah ascends, rises up, with the blowing of the shofar. The shofar notes like escort or encourage HaKadosh Baruch Hu to rise up. Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So in other words, we blow the shofar, Elokim ascends. And when we're blowing the shofar, what did we find was a result of the notes? That Elokim became Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the God of judgment, justice, power morphed into Yud Kei Vav Kei, the God of compassion, empathy, mercy. Okay? So we're blowing the shofar. And when we blow the shofar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ascends. So what does that mean, ascends? So look at the Kedushat Levi. Kedushat Levi, of course, is Rabbi Yitzchak of Berdichev. And so he's writing this at the end of the 1700s. And so it says, Allah Elokim Bitruah Hashem B'kol Shofar. That's our poem. That's Tehillim Mem Zayin. That's our poem. Yivua al pi de'ita b'tikunim. It says in the Tikkunim. Tikkunim are Kabbalistic writings. Okay? Tikkunim are Kabbalistic writings that are supposed to be like Tikkunei Zohar, parts of the Zohar that is supposed to help you improve. Okay? Tikkun, of course, to fix. Okay? So it says in the Tikkunim, which are, again, Kabbalistic writings, which are for the improvement of mankind. B'shash Yisrael tokeim b'shofar, when the Jews blow the shofar, Hashem holech, God moves. Mikisei din, L'kisei rachamim. When Rosh Hashanah begins, we're supposed to be in a state of fear, of trembling, because it begins with HaKadosh Baruch Hu sitting in the throne of judgment, and we're afraid. But as we blow the shofar, as we daven Musaf, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rises from the seat of justice to the seat of mercy, compassion. And when you read Musaf, which is the longest davening of the year, longest Shmoneh Esrei of the year. Well, it's only 9 blessings, but still the longest, far and away, the longest tefillah of the year. The change takes place during Zichronot. If you read Zichronot, I mean, they don't have time. Yeah, I mean, you're just doing everything so fast. Do your best to read it. The Zichronot and Shofrot have the same structure. There's an introductory paragraph written by the men of the Great Assembly, written by Chazal. Then there are 10 psukim from Tanakh that talk about God remembering. And then there is a closing paragraph. Okay? It's fascinating. When you look at the opening paragraph, it talks about Hashem remembers everything. And what does he remember? Ma'asim shel b'nei Adam. He records and remembers everything you've done. That is scary. So the first paragraph is scary. And the critical line is ve'ein shicha meneged kisei hakavod. And there is no forgetfulness before the throne of glory. Okay? At the end paragraph, we said Hashem remembers. What does Hashem remember? He remembers the covenant. He remembers the Akedah. He remembers all of the love between Hashem and Bnei Yisrael, specifically the Avot. Okay? So in other words, the beginning of it, the memory is scary. Because what does he remember? It's like a videotape of everything we did last year. We don't want that, okay? We don't want to look at that closed circuit TV, okay? But at the end, it's God's remembers back thousands of years. The covenant with Abraham, the covenant with Yitzchak, the covenant with Yaakov, and then good memories, good times. So the change from pachad, from trembling and fear takes place right in the middle of Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. And this verse reflects that switch. The switch when HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes from, the scary judge to benevolent parent. And that's we can breathe a sigh of relief at that point. And it takes place during that section called Zichronot. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu remember? Okay? I mean, I grew up thinking Pepperidge Farm remembers. Remember those commercials for Pepperidge Farm, the old, they had traditional cakes, okay. I don't think they were kosher, so it's probably good you don't remember. But anyways, okay. Now they are. Okay, so this is the critical idea in the poem. I mean, there's a lot going on in the poem, but here, right in the middle of the poem, is the critical idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is shifting gears from Elokim to Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, from Din to Rachamim, okay, from Melech to parent, right? Because Avinu Malkeinu, that great idea that was first used by Rabbi Akiva, he was the first one that wrote that phrase, okay, is a beautiful idea. It's both. And which do we emphasize, the parent part or the king part? Okay. And now in the next 2 verses, we emphasize singing. Zamru Elokim Zameru, they sing of God, they sing, okay? Zamru L'Malkeinu Zameru, they sing again. We've got, Elokim, and we've got Malkeinu, and we've got Zemer, music, singing. And again, it has to do with ceremonies with the, beautiful ceremonies for the, for the king, for the ruler, for God, okay? And we actually mentioned the word Zamru again in the next verse, so that some of the Hasidic Meforshim said that 5 times we say Zameru in Zion and Chet, okay, is the 5 books of Moses, is Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Because really, the Torah is a song. Really, the entire Torah is music. You just have to know. You just have to know how to sing it. It's a beautiful idea that when we sing to Hashem, what are we singing? We're singing Torah. We're singing Torah, and that's the beautiful. It's like we start to learn Torah, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu is in heaven and says, they're singing our song, right? That's our song. And that's a beautiful idea. I mean, there's a certain cuteness to it, but the idea is beautiful. How do we make beautiful music with Hashem? We learn Torah, and that's what's going on here in this. And then it continues. This idea ends here about this coronation, this fanfare, this entry, this parade of HaKadosh Baruch Hu coming in. Ki melech kol haaretz Elokim, that Elokim is the king of the entire world, the entire cosmos, universe. Okay. Zamru maskil. Now, we don't know how to use the word maskil here. So some people say maskil are the really smart people. So who does the singing? Those that get it, right? You got to have seichel to sing this song. You got to have seichel to recognize the suzerainty of HaKadosh Baruch Hu over everything. In other words, not everyone gets it. So that the maskil is a reference to the people who are singing. Now, there's a problem with that because it should be maskilim in the plural. So some people say maskil aren't the singers. Maskil is the song. The song is very complicated. The song is extremely intricate. It's a creation of genius. And there are those people that believe that is what's called the music of the spheres. What's the music of the spheres? Besides being, by the way, a piece of music written in the late 19th century, it was a reference to the fact that all of the celestial bodies, as they move through space, are producing music. And when Johann Kepler was in the early 1600s, was writing the laws of planetary motion, he was trying to make it into musical notes. He believed that if we got the math right, and by the way, he did, okay? If you get the math right for their circuits around, you can use it to produce music. He really believed that. And he was in communication with the Maharalmi Prague on the work he was doing. And actually, he had an assistant that helped him with the math for doing all of this stuff. And the person that helped him was David Gans. And David Gans, Rav David Gans, he was a student of the Maharalmi Prague. And so they were really, in other words, the Maharal believed also that the planetary motions, the universe is producing music. So that's Zamru Maskil.
Holst wrote the planets, didn't he?
I'm sorry?
Holst, he wrote the planets.
Yes.
So,
As music.
yes.
Yeah. But they believed that that you could, if you got the math right. By the way, music is very mathematical. Much more so than other things. Than other things we think of as the arts, right? But it's really cool that way. So which way it goes, it's up to you. I like the idea that what they're singing is very complicated, and that what they're singing really somehow replicates the what is so complicated, what's so complex about creation. That the more you study Torah and relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more you understand the workings of the universe. And so that's the middle musical section. And now we go to the last couple of verses, and here we return to some of the themes that we've begun. We say, Malach Elokim al Goyim. That Elokim rules over Goyim. And Goyim is another term for national groupings. And Goyim is the loosest, the loosest expression for how people get together. Goyim means people who happen to share something in common. Usually it's geographic. So it's like the peoples of Asia would be Goyim. So we've got three different terms, okay? Amim is a very tight connection, usually political. Le'umim is ethnicity, that they share cultural things in common. And Goyim means they don't share much in common, but they can get grouped together because of something they do share in common. And usually that would be geography. So we're getting in like all of the ways of describing groups of humanity, okay? So Malach Elokim al Goyim. Kadosh Baruch Hu rules over, reigns over, over all, any grouping of humanity that you can think of. No matter how you group them, Kadosh Baruch Hu is in charge. Elokim Yashav al Kisei Kodsho. God sits on his holy throne. Okay? And now comes, that verse is simple, relatively, okay? Now comes a complicated verse. And there's a lot of discussion exactly how to touch up, how to explain this last verse, okay? And here we go. Nedivei amim ne'esafu. Who are the Nedivei amim? So I'm going to translate at least initially, the nobles of the nations, the nobility. Now, nobility doesn't necessarily mean people that have the right blood. Nobility also describes their behavior. They're noble in their behavior. So the noble, the good people of the world, ne'esafu. In other words, not everybody gets it. Now, in the previous poem, in chapter 46 of Tehillim, a lot of people got killed in that war. So we're talking about the survivors here. But even amongst the survivors, not everybody gathers together, because not everybody has the nobility of nature. Not everybody has the strength of character and intelligence to get it. But here we're talking about the best of the survivors in the world, okay? Gather, okay? This group that gathers is Am Elokei Avraham. This group of people that gathers is going to be called the nation of the God of Avraham. We switched. Notice earlier in the poem, we were talking about the Jews as Yaakov. Now we're talking about Avraham. Why the switch to Avraham here? Because these are converts. These are people who are gathering to attach themselves to the Jewish nation. And when you talk about converts, Jews by choice, right? Then Avraham, because Avraham was the first person that went around, the nefesh asher asa b'charan, that all the people that he brought under his wings, within his tent. So that's why we switched to Abraham. Okay, poor Yitzchak. Yitzchak gets left out. He's the middle. Okay, so at the beginning of the poem, we're talking about specifically recognition of the Jews. At the end of the poem, we're talking about other nobles of the world, other worthies of the world becoming Jewish, gathering with us, attaching themselves to us. Does that mean that they will become formally converts or not? It's a machloket, actually. It's a machloket. Some people say that the good people will all convert. Some people say, no, they don't have to. They'll. It's actually a machloket between Zechariah and Yeshayahu. Zechariah and Yeshayahu both have those famous verses about, nation shall not learn war anymore, lift up swords, making your spears into plowshares. Both, but one of them says, Yeshayahu says they'll become Jewish, and Zechariah says each nation will walk in its own path. So it seems like it's a machlok. In other words, either one of those visions can be correct. We'll have to see which one will actually work out. But in either case, the good people will all attach themselves to us, whether that means as Jews or as B'nai Noach, as Chasidei Umot Olam. I don't know. It's totally up to them. Just one more word about the word nadiv. We love the word nadiv. It's a beautiful word. In modern Hebrew, not in biblical Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, it means philanthropist. Philanthropist. And a nedava is a donation. So people that give donations are nadiv. But in biblical Hebrew, it means nobility. And usually it meant mamish nobility. Sometimes it means people of noble spirit. Here I think it really means noble spirit. And of course the person in modern Jewish history who was called the Nadiv was Rothschild. That the joke was he didn't want anyone to know that he was giving the donations. That was, he really said, nobody can use my name. So what they did was they said the Nadiv, but everybody knew who it was. After a couple of years, everybody knew who it was. But that everybody said the Nadiv, and that of course was Rothschild. Okay, ki lelokim magine eretz, for or that to God are the Megine Aretz. What or who? It's a big machloket, whether Megine Aretz is a what or a who. I like to say it's a who. Megine Aretz are those people who, by their behavior, are going to preserve planet Earth. In other words, Mashiach comes in an age of tremendous disruption. And then afterwards, the survivors make a new world. And I would like to think that amongst them are these wonderful people who are the guardians, the guardians of the galaxy, right? The guardians of our Earth, the shields of our Earth. It could be, and many Meforshim say it actually is a reference to specific things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do to protect the world. Think about this for a second. Go back to Noah. In other words, what was the magain that Noah was given? The promise of the rainbow. So in other words, it could be things like promises of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Megine Aretz could be natural phenomena that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is putting in place to show that the world will not be destroyed again. That this is the way it's going to be. Bezrat Hashem, forever and forever and ever. And that's wonderful. So it could be people, or it could be phenomena. I don't know. I like personally pshat that it's people. That there will be wonderful people like ears to the Avot and the Nevi'im that will guide us, and they'll be the shields. But whatever it is, it's ma'od na'alah. It is very exalted, very high. There's a sense of tremendous, I'm sorry? The situation. In other words, that Baruch Hu is going to set in the land these protectors and it's going to make the world extremely elevated. There's a sense of the world is totally in a new place, much higher than it ever was before. And this idea of Ma'od Na'alah fits in with a lot of our visions of the concept that the Geula Shlema, the final redemption, will somehow be greater than you'd see at Mitzrayim, than the Geula of Mitzrayim and Har Sinai. And that idea is, of course, is one of the psukim that we say in Shofarot, the pasuk from Yeshayahu, Yitaka b'shofar gadol, that the time will come when there will be a blasting of the great shofar. So according to tradition, the ram of Yitzchak had two shofarot. Okay, so one was big, and the other was bigger, right? So the big one that was smaller, which of course we refer to as the little bighorn. Sorry about that. So anyways, for you Custer fans, so that shofar was blown at Har Sinai. The larger shofar gadol, the larger of the two shofarot, is going to be blasted at Yemot HaMashiach. And so therefore the reference there is Ma'od Na'alah. It's going to be very exalted. Now it's even more so than at Har Sinai and Yitziat Mitzrayim. Okay? So in other words, the 49 steps, sounds like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Okay? It was 39. The 49 steps from Yitziat Mitzrayim to Har Sinai was high, but it's going to be even higher when we get to the 49th step, what this poem is referencing, the 49 steps, okay, that's going to take place at Yemot HaMashiach. So that's what's going on in the poem. Now, there's one last thing I just want to reference, and that is a number of the Meforshim. Specifically, the Sfat Emet talks about it, and even the Midrash and Vayikra Rabbah emphasize the number 7. Now, of course, the number 7 is a big deal. This Elohim is in the poem 7 times. We read the poem 7 times. We want to get to 49, 7 times 7. But what happens is in the Vayikra Rabbah, Rosh Hashanah is only in the Torah 2 times. Once in Emor, in Perek Chav Gimel, chapter 23 of Vayikra, and once in chapter 29 of Bamidbar. That's it. Those 2 places is the only mention of Rosh Hashanah. Of course, the name Rosh Hashanah doesn't appear. The 2 names it has is Zichron Trua. Those are the 2 names. So we say Yom HaZikaron. But in the Midrash, in Vayikra, when the verse begins, it says, and in the 7th month. And so there's an emphasis on the fact that it's the 7th month. And that somehow the number 7, according to the Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah, is very much related to a word which is based upon that. And that word is shvu'ah, promise, oath. That the oath gets fulfilled in the 7th month. That 7 leads us, and that's the 7 in the poem, and the 7 times 7, and all the 7s lead us to the fulfillment of the Shvuah. Now, by the way, this is not a coincidence. Apparently, and we see this even in the Torah, that when an oath was made in Beersheba between, first Avram and then later Yitzchak with the surrounding people, they brought 7 sacrifices. And in Parshas Balak, before Bilam wants to Halila curse, but eventually blesses the Jewish people, twice he brings 7 sacrifices. So apparently, when people in the ancient world, when people made oaths, it was related to a ceremony involving the number 7. Whether it's 7 offerings or they walked around 7 times, it doesn't make any difference. But the idea is that many of the biblical oaths were related to the number 7. And that was the source for the word Shvuah. So the Midrash plays on that. And the emphasis on, we don't have Rosh Hashanah, we don't have Yom HaDin and Yom HaZikaron, right? Until the 7th month is because we're emphasizing the nature of the number 7. That 7 gets us to the fulfillment of all of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's promises and oaths to the Jewish nation. And again, that brings us to the paragraph at the end of Zichronot, where we emphasize the memory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is all of the covenants, all of the britot, all of the deals made with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That, remember, beginning of memory is scary. The end of memory is extremely reassuring and comforting. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not betray any of the deals made with humanity, because we also talk about the deal made with Noah. Hashem will not renege on any of the Shvuah promises made. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers and keeps. And that's what we have to remember. I'm sorry, Rivki. What do you want?
Sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. No. The Gula of the final redemption is going to be greater than the Yetziat Mitzrayim.
That's the normal approach.
Does that mean we're going to have like 2 Pesachs? Are we going to have one in the 7th month and in the first month?
That's a machloket. No. There's not going to be a new Pesach. There's a machloket in the Gemara, in Rosh Hashanah, between 2 Tanaim, whether or not, it's part of the same argument. When was the world created? Was the world created at Nisan or at Tishrei? Okay, but the argument goes on. Will the final redemption take place in Nisan or in Tishrei? If the final redemption takes place in Nisan, it's going to be a renewal of Pesach. If the final redemption takes place in Nisan, it's going to be renewal of Sukkot. In Tishrei, it's going to be renewal of Sukkot. In other words, one of the holidays is going to get reconfirmed and further developed. It's not that there'll be a new holiday. It'll be a confirmation of one of the existing holidays. That seems to be the approach that's taken within Chazal.
There's sort of a contradiction there. We're supposed to pray and hope for the Gula all the time.
Right.
But like, for example, now
like the Rambam says, I await Mashiach every day. But then we know there are many days we say Mashiach can't come on this day or that day. So how can you await it every day? Well, some people say the Rambam's wording wasn't so great. No, we shouldn't say every day. All the time. Yeah.
In other words, you want to be pessimistic. If the Gula doesn't show up in Nisan, then you don't think about it till Rosh Hashanah. You got 6-month break to pray for the Gula.
That's what yeah, I understand. But there are also Meforshim that say, yes, there are specific times for Geula. However, if we need it, it'll happen Keheref Einayim, it'll happen immediately, that could be any time. So there is all sorts of arguments. Okay, so just in summary, just two sentences very quickly to summarize the poem. Number one, the pshat in the poem is It's celebrating the victory in the time of Mashiach and the coronation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as, as Lord over the world in recognition for all the survivors. Okay, and that's very, very beautiful. Okay, however, we borrow this concept and use it as a coronation poem for HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Rosh Hashanah. And we specifically, just like at a lahavdil, at a human coronation, there are trumpet blasts and fanfare, right? Hail to the chief type stuff. So lahavdil, there'll be that for HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, and that's what we're doing. So we're getting in the shofar blowing, and we're getting in the coronation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which we believe is part of the Rosh Hashanah process. We're adding to that, getting in the number 49 by saying Elokim, 7 times 7, because we're talking about all of the spiritual levels that we are trying to climb, that we're trying to ascend during our Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur experience. So the poem, even though it has a historical meaning, we use it because it's so laden with very powerful symbolism, which is so easy to apply to our Rosh Hashanah experience. So we're not gonna meet next week because it's Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay, everybody will be saying slichas all day. But I do want to wish everybody a ketiva uchatima tova, a happy, healthy, wonderful New Year.
Could you repeat what you said about going?